What advice would you give to someone in first year of university right now?
There's three main things I'd say, and essentially,
how would you personally define a good for profit?
it's just wanting to help people find out what they want to do with their career. For me, I want to be the facilitator of opportunities that maybe didn't exist before young people. I'd like to build something that when at university I could go, I wish I had that. Surely knowing what you want to do in life has to be one of the biggest problems this world's got to solve. I have a massive imposter syndrome. It's just a spectrum. Every single thing you do in the day, in any facet of life, is going to have some level of uncomfortability. Obviously, you've got to put yourself in positions to be given the opportunities in the first place. You just got to say yes because you have more time than you think.
Can you just give one piece of advice on how to juggle a lot of things at the same time?
Okay.
Peter, hello, my friend, and welcome.
Hello.
It's good to have you here, man.
Yeah, good to be here, mate.
Obviously, one very quick thing right away, just off the cuff. I think that you're the youngest guest I've had here. I mean, I haven't had that many just yet, but you're definitely the youngest anyway for now. But you've had a lot of success, regardless, which is kind of, I guess, goes to show that age doesn't matter too much. But yeah, do you mind sharing with our listeners how old you are at the moment? Would you be comfortable with that?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean, obviously, recent graduate VCL.
Brilliant, man. And you graduated literally, was it last summer that you graduated?
Yeah, it's like a few months ago now, yeah.
Amazing. How does it feel?
Feels good. I mean, to be honest, I was definitely one of those people that just picked university because it felt like the right thing to do at the time. And I mean, education, I wouldn't say it really suited me to a T. Like I did history, which has nothing to do with anything I do now. But, it was good fun. And yeah, I'm ready for this next chapter.
Yeah, it's interesting because, graduating uni is it's such that there's sort of this feeling that you should know exactly what you want to do with your life at that point. But that's obviously something that most people don't really experience. And one of the things I really want to talk about today is actually your podcast, which I suppose when we spoke previously about this, you kind of mentioned that part of it for you was that this is kind of part of the problem that you're trying to solve with your podcast. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I guess the main mission statement of Graduate Guide is to get people talking about careers from a younger age in a healthier way. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's nothing cooler than someone speaking passionately about what they do in a day-to-day life, and it's so hard to find that at university because you can't just do a degree and then you're expected to apply for internships with what work experience, where do you get the work experience? I mean, there's just such a lack of awareness of what you can actually do by your university. So essentially with the podcast, I just took matters into my own hands and was like, I'm just going to speak to people that might have the answer to the question, learn for myself and see if anyone else wants to listen, basically.
That's really cool. So the Graduate Guide has gotten fairly popular within the student community, as far as I've sort of looked around and asked around. And yeah, how have students kind of perceived it? Do you find that it's exactly kind of what they're looking for? And also another question kind of to follow from that, how did you pick the people that you wanted to speak with? Was it just based on your experience? You think, okay, who would I want to chat with? Or do you kind of look around and think, all these students, they could really use chatting to this person?
Well, I think sort of to preface everything, I had no idea what I wanted it to be when I started, which is kind of its superpower and its drawback of people in that, I didn't know who I wanted to speak to. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So all those episodes were led by just a curiosity of mine. And in the early days, my close friends, anyone who did listen, who somehow found out about it on my awful LinkedIn posts, they help guide and lead who you should speak to, and a lot of word of mouth. And to be honest, what I realized is I had a lot of sort of delusional confidence in who I could reach in the beginning, and I think that was literally just because I had such it's surprising to me, but positive responses from people that you didn't think they would respond. They just appreciate the sort of ambition and enthusiasm of someone with youth on their side, asking questions that maybe other people aren't. And yeah, so I feel like, is it what people want? I hope so, but I think with the next stage of the graduate guide, where I'm actually not hosting it, and it's building out this podcast network, I think it will be.
That's really exciting. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so essentially, I just had a moment really where I felt I love interviewing people and asking questions, but I didn't feel like I was doing it on behalf of the people I wanted to help with the graduate, which is, the reason I thought it worked is because I myself was lost and confused and didn't know what I wanted to do. And I had those opportunities to ask questions. So I was like, why don't I just give this opportunity to other very capable students, interviewed over 150 people for the role, pick the best 4 ones in first year, then second year, third year, master's students. So a real diversity of opinion and voice and sort of contrasting episodes, some more on startups, some more on corporate world. So you're really hitting as many niches as possible. And, if this model is proved, I actually will be announcing probably when this episode comes out that Huzzle have taken over the running of the podcast. So I still have
Congratulations.
creative.
That's incredible, man. That's really cool.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. I mean, again, it's all very accidental, and I obviously I did all this with some sort of intention of, creating a career for myself or whatever. But the actual product and how it happens, you don't really have that much control over who reaches out to you.
So how can you tell us a bit more about that what you've got going on with Huzzle?
Yeah, well, I mean, basically, I think it's for people that don't know, Huzzle is a sort of careers platform where you can find out all the best internship, graduate job opportunities. It's all over the world. It's got loads and loads of students, connected in all the societies. And they wanted to start a podcast anyway, but they were like, oh, you got to build the studio, you got to find the host, you got to do all this. And Amar reached out to me. He was like, why don't we just join forces? I know that you're starting a new job. I needed to sort of start delegating some time anyway. It's not free to have a studio, invest all the right things into production, whatever. So essentially, I think there's just I saw in Huzzle just another young, ambitious founder who had a very similar mission statement and can just help elevate what we're doing, the graduate guides, to the next level.
Incredible. That's really, really cool. Congratulations on that, my friend. And
Thank you.
This obviously will buy you time to be able to do some fun things with your time that hopefully you'll find just as fun as the podcast, because I know you enjoyed this. As much as I know it's hard work, but I know you enjoyed it nonetheless. And that fun thing that you're going to be doing is going to be to get a job, right?
Yeah, I mean, luckily I've already got the job, so I did all this.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it was an amazing opportunity, and I'm sort of hesitant to just feel like I'm sort of speaking about any achievements or anything, but yeah, that was a real full circle moment for me where a year ago I was a student studying history, barely anything on my CV, 10 followers on LinkedIn or whatever, and I just decided to start doing something, and it all was just proven to be worth it. I had no financial gain from anything I did before. Yes, maybe my following was going, whatever, but to actually land a job and a career, be like, what you've been doing is worth it. And it's in specific, it's head of events at Easy A. So events is something that I love. I've always said, whatever I do, I want to see the tangible impact of it. And I don't think there's anything more like that than events where people are in person consuming something that you put hours and days and weeks and maybe years into putting all this organization to make people take the most value, have the best time, meet the best people, and it's just what I love doing. So going to be doing that all over the world, so I couldn't be more excited for the next chapter.
This episode is brought to you by EcoSwap. EcoSwap is bringing together the UK's favourite eco-friendly high street brands onto a single gift card, allowing you to give the gift of choice, where your loved ones can choose from brands such as The Body Shop, Rituals, Toast Brewing, The National Trust, and many, many more. And our gift to our listeners is 10% off your first purchase with EcoSwap when you use the code GOOD4PROFIT at checkout. What sets EcoSwap apart is their commitment to sustainability and ethics. They meticulously curate their brand selection, ensuring that each one meets rigorous standards set by esteemed certifiers such as B Corp, 1% for the planet, climate neutral, or they're a UK registered charity. With EcoSwap, you're not just giving a gift. You're choosing to support the UK's best brands that are genuinely committed to benefiting both people and planet. So go ahead, give an EcoSwap gift card today. Visit ecoswap.uk and use the code GOODFORPROFIT at checkout. That's good for profit with no spaces for your 10% off your first order today. That's incredible, man. And I didn't realize you've actually been doing full time. I thought you were doing a part-time role up before while you were doing the podcast. So you were doing the podcast alongside a full-time role. That's bad research on my part. I'll put my hand up there.
No, so I'll be starting that job now, and essentially, obviously, I was a student only 3 months ago, so yeah. I've always been doing juggling quite a lot of balls. And then when I graduated, I basically was like, okay, I'll give myself till around January to just go all in on the podcast. I was doing a Waterfields company as well, which went very well, and I exited out of that myself. What?
Shout out to Water 2.
Yeah, shout out to Water 2.
I've got the filter at home.
You did?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Wow, yeah. So, yeah, and Charles will continue to do an amazing job for that. But he knew that, I'm so young and early in my career journey, I need to try different things. And yeah, that was just a great learning in my sort of career so far.
That's really cool, man. Can I touch on that for a bit longer, actually, before we move on? That you wanted to try a lot of things early on in your career. How did you discover that you need to do that? I know it's a silly question, but I think it's an important one.
I think there's an element of my natural personality, and then also just listening to the guests and taking their advice on board. And it was really like also combined with that, seeing these really, clever, get the top grades at university, amazing people who have nothing on their CV because they've just thought, okay, well, I'll just get a first in my degree. Like, isn't that what we're meant to be doing? And then all of a sudden they get that, and then they don't actually know what they can use that for in practice in their career. And I'm like, okay, where was where was the message that we were meant to actually diversify our CVs and how we could have done it even? I think I just I've always been someone that likes doing a lot. Like, I'm at my happiest when I'm sort of trying new things and feeling like some level of progression, and I've definitely not always had that. So that's also a superpower, like coming out of lockdown, feeling very demotivated, and then that first taste you get of like even just doing something. Like Wars 2 was like, for example, was such a cool opportunity to just work along really motivated, high achieving young individual in Charles, and yeah, I just basically said yes to any opportunity that was thrown my way. Obviously, you've got to put yourself in the positions to be given the opportunities in the first place, which was kind of my selfish intention for the podcast, was just like meet as many people, see how many opportunities I can get, and yeah, you just got to say yes, because when you're a student, there's absolutely no reason you shouldn't. Like, you have more time than you think. I managed to get my degree done and do all these other things, not because I'm the most organized or the most capable of doing so, just because you really do have so much time, I think, when you're at university.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I think a lot of people don't realize how much time they have at uni until they finish uni and get a full-time job, and then they realize, shit, okay, suddenly there's not much time in the week to get other things done. And I personally believe there is time. You can always make time for the most part. But I think what it is as well is the mental effort that it takes. If you're doing a full-time job, if you're trying to progress in your career, realistically speaking, you're not going to be working 40 hours. You're probably going to be working more, and just the mental strain alone is going to be quite a lot more than university is. So it's much harder to do something on the side, right, after uni than it is.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm in danger of being that person that I don't want to be. I'm like, oh, you got so much time and you do it. Like, I know it's not actually like that in reality. And also you kind of got to account for the small things like sports nights and, hangovers and things like that. You have no structure, so nobody's going to give it to you. Like, you have at work. Nobody's going to allocate you that time to get other stuff done. You've got to make it yourself. You've got to work out your priorities. And if you don't work out your priorities, which to be honest, I didn't do for 2 years at university, and I frantically rushed in my final year to try and do something before I graduated. Like I just think it's important to sort of also not beat yourself up for not having done it. You can work out your career whenever you want, really. It's just, it does help getting a head start.
To be honest, I was going to leave that to the end and ask you, because you've interviewed a lot of people and you've had conversations with so many clever people, like you've said already, who've given you a lot of insight into different jobs. I was going to ask you at the end, what advice would you give to young people now, to people at university now, and sort of first, second, third, fourth year? But since we're on the topic, we might as well go through it now.
Yeah.
You must have thought a lot about everything that you've been told and everything all the conversations that you've had with other people. And you strike me, and you already mentioned that you work quite hard, but you strike me as someone who's quite organized with these things and has managed to put a lot of kind of organization in place. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, by the way. You could just be...
Well, I don't know. I find it may be comparatively to some people, but like at UCL, I have a massive imposter syndrome with that, where I feel like the least organized and the least capable and the least hardworking. Just like at the end of the day, you are a product of your environment, right? Like the people you surround yourself with will dictate how hard you work, what you work on, everything like that. So I don't think actually, but I like surrounding myself with people that are doing a lot of hard work.
Okay, well, let's touch on that imposter syndrome later. Let's pause that thought, because I definitely want to dive into that, because that's a very difficult thing to come over, especially earlier in your career. It's a very, very difficult thing to come over. And just quickly, let's go back to that advice thing. So the reason I was mentioning this kind of quick caveat is because I'm sure you've made notes about the key lessons you've taken away and the main things you've kind of understood from these people that you've spoken to. So what advice would you give to someone in first year of university right now, just regardless of what they're studying?
So what I'll do is I'll give you my favorite piece of advice that was given in a business context, but I like to think of it just in terms of life and even university, where, I had Sam Warby, the founder of Old Sam, on relatively early days, and he was very his episode was great because he was exactly what I wanted to achieve with the podcast, where you're taking someone that potentially doesn't have this massive voice online, but has achieved so much and like has such a successful career. But he's also like, he's a really like normal,
down to earth.
Down to earth, but like, he didn't make entrepreneurship seem too inaccessible. He just he just spoke very candidly, and it made me really enthusiastic to actually want to do an entrepreneur, which not everybody did, to be fair. Some people were like, stay clear, don't go anywhere near it unless you want to do it. I'm like, come on, surely it can't be that bad. Anyway, he said to me, it sounds simple, but in the context of the conversation, he was, enjoy the ride, enjoy the journey, because really, like, whenever I get too sort of overwhelmed by how much work I have or whatever, I just think, what's the point in doing any of this if you're not happy at the end of it? Like, genuinely, what is the point if you're not happy? Because surely that's got to be the guiding star or the main motivator in life, to just be enjoying it, and that sort of really helps sort of dictate where you expend your energy, where you're at university, what kind of things you do with your company, what job you go into, because university can seem very, almost samey, mundane. I don't really know how to articulate that properly, but every day can just sort of amalgamate into this one blend of drinking and somehow like cram a load of work in or whatever. Like, I think you've just got to work out your way of enjoying it and your way of being productive within it, because it's never going to be the same as the other person. You go from school where you've got all this accountability, it's teachers, your parents telling you what to do, when to do it, and then you're completely left to your own devices, and you just got to, work out your way of dealing with, maybe you weren't going on nights out before and now you are, or maybe you didn't have girls in your life before and now there are, like, all these things, you don't hear them on careers podcasts, but your career is your life. Do you know what I mean? You have to incorporate and blend your career into your life. And if your life's not right or isn't in the way or shape you want it to be, there's a good chance your career won't be either. So you just got to work out all those things and just enjoy it. Try to be happy.
Yeah, that's I feel like that's something you kind of consistently battle with for the whole of life. How do I do what I feel like should be done or needs to be done, but at the same time, like you said, enjoy the ride and just have fun on the way? Because having fun on the way is such an important thing. I totally agree. Um, but how do you balance that? I suppose, like, and with the idea of, I don't even like the idea of balance, because balance suggests there is a seesaw and you have to kind of always try to keep it exactly in the middle. And it's like, it doesn't really work like that, right? But kind of how do you go about, well, doing all the coursework you need to get done and trying to do an internship on the side to make sure you're trying different things and joining societies and doing whatever and going out and having fun and partying, right? Like, how do you balance all those things out? How do you put them into one thing?
I mean, I'd be lying if I could just sit here and give you like a perfectly orchestrated answer, because I don't think there is one. And it's why I ask so many questions, because one thing I worked out about myself is that I'm not a calculator, I'm not an Excel whiz, I'm not one of these just like naturally hot, like education wasn't just like so easy for me that I could just breeze through it like I see some people doing. And for me, what I realized about myself and sort of a skill was I'm a bit of a sponge in that if somebody says something and I really resonate with it, like that's how I make my learnings most effectively. Like just hearing loads of different viewpoints, loads of different ideas and ways of living, and then taking in the ones that okay, that sounds kind of right for me. Let's try it out. It works, it doesn't work, you reiterate. And I've definitely got balance wrong so many times, messed up some pieces of coursework. Full transparency, I literally didn't even submit a module in first year just because I was like...
That's brilliant.
Yeah, but the way the rules were with COVID and everything like that, I still got my 2-1, very comfortably. And it just shows that, it's never too late to pull it back. Some months, some weeks, you've got to prioritize different things to get one ball rolling in one direction, and then maybe you'll accidentally let one slip, but it's a learning process. I'm not there yet, but having a job hopefully will kick me into some sort of structure, which is hard to give myself as an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Man. Do you know that the really interesting thing you mentioned there, because you mentioned you're not the most calculated person, you're not the most kind of, pen on paper or whatever when it comes to these things. In a way, I guess that works in your favor when it comes to life. I don't know if you've heard about the Stanford course on life design. Have you heard of this?
I don't think I have, mate.
So Stanford have provide this course on how to design your life effectively. That all the students that study at Stanford can do this course. And the two professors who put the whole thing together and have been running this for the last 20, 30 years, I think, something like that, they've written a book about it, which I thought was pretty cool. And they've written a couple of books around career design and life design and things like that. But one of the things that really stood out to me in that is that they talk about this whole designing your career, designing your life thing as a design problem as opposed to an engineering problem. In that with an engineering problem, there is a perfect way to do it. There is we know what the factors in, factors out are. We know what we're looking for exactly. If we want to build a bridge, we know exactly what we need to measure and how to make sure it's done perfectly so it doesn't fall over. We know how many cars can pass over it in its lifetime and so on. But with life, it's more of a design problem where, for example, you're Apple and you want to create something that people can use on the go that's not a computer, and you want to make an iPad. There is no real right way to do it. It's a design problem. Just go and figure it out. Like, there is really no other way. So making mistakes on the way, having a lot of hypotheses and so on, and then testing them and failing and trying and failing and so on is kind of part of it.
I would add that, like, you can sort of help inform your decisions as well before you go out there and just purely just let yourself fail. Sure. There are a lot of good, like, I'm a podcast listener, but I listen to actually less now that I host them, but I just love consuming other people's conversations as well, and that sort of form of learning where it's almost like, you feel immersed within it, and it's not like a lecture. So find your way of learning, and then pretty much nowadays every single form of learning is so advanced now and so specific to that type. There's actually scientific studies going on, or like people that like listening or reading or whatever it is. You got to work that out for yourself. I think that's a really important thing. University, like, and pretty understated actually, in terms of its importance. And for me, like collaboration, all those things can help you prevent you just messing up so horrifically that there's no coming back. Even though there obviously is always a way to come back, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, but if you can save some years on the way and not make some mistakes, then that's much better. So yeah, totally. So I guess, I guess I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to add any more to that. I think I'm going to leave it there. What I was going to ask you is the following. What's your favorite podcast, since you mentioned podcasts?
My favorite podcast? Well, I'm a massive sports fan. So when I just want to tune out everything, I'll have listened to the rest is football, Gary Lineker, and
of course
Alan Shearer and Mavarich. I listen to the rugby pod, Van Gaal and Joe Hamilton, but that's probably not very helpful to anyone in terms of sort of advice.
Do you have a favorite educational one or sort of business one?
Yeah, I think to be honest, I'm more drawn into. I've been trying to work this out myself in my own podcast. Why someone will click on a podcast and not? I like listening to the individual guests, and I've kind of followed them around the podcast they go on. So less like tuning in for the person who's the interviewer, because to be honest, even though I'd like people to think I'm a good interviewer and whatever, I really think it's about the value that the person's delivering at the end of the day. That's what you're tuning in for. And I think it's important for me to give my own thoughts and contextualize questions with my own experience, but really I was always aware that I'm not the one people are tuning in for. So to answer your question, I don't really have one business podcast. I really like following people like Ali Abdallah, and I really like Colin and Samir's podcast. That's on YouTube.
Which one? Sorry,
it's called the Colin and Samir podcast or show.
Don't think I've heard
it's just like creators and like entrepreneurs and more like centered around YouTube, but really interesting and super well done. And I think a massive inspiration for me in terms of the levels I want to reach with production and guests and interviewing and stuff.
Incredible. Really cool stuff. You seem to be quite a reflective person on your journey, on what you like, what don't you like, how you like to work, and so on. And it's incredible. It's incredible to see that, because I mean, I feel like that's a lot I can personally learn from, on being more like that, more self-aware, so that I can better understand myself and kind of better help myself in life, I suppose. Is that something that you've always had? Have you always been like this, or is that something that you kind of developed over time?
I feel like at times I had to be, if that makes sense. Like there were times where I really wasn't happy because I wasn't myself, like whether that's just like social pressures, like sort of making you lose elements of yourself to do what you think is more popular or whatever. Like I've had to become like the happiest person and sort of excel in the ways I want to. Even from a really young age, I feel like I've had to like question a lot of what I was doing. And I guess I'm just sort of seeing how effective that's been for me, just in terms of just being happy and being myself, that I just replicate that in a sort of business sense now. Just constantly going like, surely that can't be the happiest I can be with my company or the way it's running. And yeah, obviously another thing that I've mentioned already is just ask from people's opinions. Like, I'm always talking to people. I'm always just, what do you think of this? And even if I'm not asking, I now have some close mentors that will go like, without me even asking, like, that's not great. Or like, whatever it is. So it's just important to have people like that around you as well.
Absolutely. It sounds like you've cultivated that relationship with a few people that can actually tell you how things are without worrying that you're going to be offended or get upset or anything like that.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like I can say that with sort of chess now, because I've spoken to so many people since starting this podcast. Like, not all of them you're going to want to spend more time with or keep closer to you or have as a mentor or mentor them. But, like even with us, like we've spoken a few times prior to this podcast. I think it's just very clear that I enjoy speaking to you. Like, it's very level-headed conversation, very like we let each other speak and their thoughts. And those are the kind of people I like speaking to. You can't, there's no golden rule or, steps to how you can find them or who they are, but you just got to just stop thinking about it so much. Who do you like spending time with? Like, who do you think is giving you the best advice?
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I really appreciate the kind words, man, and I really enjoy talking to you as well. And we've spoken a few times in the past, and yeah, obviously it's there is similar sort of wavelength there. I think I want to kind of touch on that a little bit more, though. The whole being around people that can tell you things how they are and not tell you what you want to hear, because that's so. I've personally found that it's quite tough to come by if you don't give the space. I don't know what it is. I think different cultures have this differently. So I'm actually in Abu Dhabi right now. I'm out in the Middle East at the moment, and I feel like with friends from the Middle Eastern world, or let's say from the Arab world or from Egypt, actually, to be even more specific, just because my background is originally Egyptian, so I don't want to kind of generalize, but in the Middle East, generally speaking, and definitely in Egypt, I feel like with friends, I can say something or run something past them, and it's a lot more acceptable for them to be like, nah, that's stupid, doesn't make any sense. Quite direct, quite to the point, whereas I feel like with other friendships that I have, for example, I don't know, whether it be in Europe or in the UK or whatever, and I hate that I have to separate those now. I mean, technically, UK is still Europe nonetheless. I feel like it's less of a norm for friends to do that with each other, and it's more of a norm for friends to be like, yeah, that's cool, man. Maybe you should try it out and see if you like it, or something along those lines. Have you found that to be a similar thing around you, like as the usual thing, or is it just me?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I don't know if it's as much, because I'm only really, I'm from England.
Sure.
There's no like...
I figured.
Yeah, I'm a very British person, and very boring name. So not much like culture to myself, but I lived in Canada.
British
for 6
culture
months,
is still culture. Just
yeah. Just not a very good one. I lived in Canada for 6 months, working as a ski instructor, and I lived in Spain for a bit, and you can definitely sense that, just different ways of life and different attitudes to when you've got to do things by, or how you've got to do them, or, even like you said, feedback and stuff like that. But I really, especially living in London, such a culturally diverse place, and, UCL, I think, had the most international students of any university. I didn't pick that university by accident. Like, I picked that as a big selling point, to be honest, because I went to such a, it was a great school in terms of education, but it was like very sheltered away from the real world. And, there was a lot of bubbling that happened there with thoughts, and nobody really learned anything new because everyone thought the same thing. And I was like, there's got to be more to, more ways of thinking than this. And then living in Canada, living in Spain, it was just like, yeah, you got to go to uni in London. You got to challenge what you think right now. So to be honest, ever since the day I started at UCL, I've only ever spent time socializing with people, or even worked with people that I think are challenging to some extent my way of thought. For a long time in my life, I didn't have that.
That's incredible. That uncomfortable feeling that you get when you're being challenged by someone, especially for something you're quite passionate about or excited about, can be quite tough to deal with. But the more that you do it, the more that you work that muscle, and the better it turns out in the end, usually, because you've tried to figure out more things that could go wrong, which is really helpful. Speaking of uncomfortable feelings, you mentioned imposter syndrome earlier.
Yeah.
Can we touch a bit on that?
Well, I mean, this comes up all the time in my episodes on the graduate guide, and I still don't know what definition or way of utilizing imposter syndrome is best. Like, some people find it a really uncomfortable one that you just got to try and live with and overcome, and some people say, what a load of rubbish, and what is imposter syndrome? And other people say, use it as your superpower. That uncomfortability is going to help you learn. And to be honest, I just think it's just a spectrum, imposter syndrome, isn't it? Like, every single thing you do in the day, in any facet of life, is going to have some level of uncomfortability. You just might be more comfortable within that uncomfortability in others, So I think if you look at other bits of your life, it could be a fitness regime or, an amount you socialize. There might be a week where you thought, I've really hit that nail on the head in terms of how much I've wanted to do it, who I've wanted to do it with, how hard I push myself in the gym, whatever it is. And you can apply that to a career or university context. Like, how much are you going to push yourself to do something that you've not done before? And if it's too detrimental to your mental health, take a step back, think about that. Was it beneficial pushing yourself? Like, were those learnings that you made greater than the stress that you caused yourself? If yes, then keep doing it. If no, think of another way of getting better. Is kind of my thought process.
That's very interesting. So you look at essentially the trade-off that you're making between the level of uncomfort you're willing to go through and the reward that you get at the end, and then kind of decide that way.
I mean, that's probably a better way of putting that.
No. The way you put it was perfect. I'm simply just summarizing. So, what about the feeling? Do you when you're about to put out a piece of content? So let's talk about kind of content building or whatever, because that's where imposter syndrome tends to come up a lot for people. Certainly for me, when I'm putting things out in the world, that feeling you get, which that cringe or whatever it is, do you still get that?
Well, so I've
did
never
you ever
been...
get that? Sorry, I should ask. Yeah.
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, like, it literally, that feeling has been so essential to every single thing that I've ever done in my career. I've never been someone that even wrote Instagram captions on photos of my mates. I'm like, try and steer clear of anything cringy or anything anyone could judge you on. But then with my career, I knew I had thoughts I wanted to express. I didn't know how I could get them out there or, build an audience off it. So I was just like, well, if you don't want to listen to me, listen to other people, like the people that do know. Well, so wow. I think I hid behind that for so long. But
wow.
All my posts were literally just, check out this episode of this person, check out this post. I probably reached like 30 posts where I hadn't actually said anything of my own, and built some sort of audience. And then you start getting people reaching out and being like, oh, I really liked what you said in that podcast about this. And then they just start giving you that confidence to be like, okay, what you're saying and what you're doing is helping people. And also, if you have got any hate or anyone sort of laughing at you or being like, oh, what's he doing that? Like, it just helps you consolidate who your real mates are. And once you've got those core mates, you can be whatever persona you want online and completely switch off at them as soon as you go off that app. Like, that's really how I feel now. I just, if it's, I have people from my sort of prep school and secondary school on LinkedIn, they probably look at me and go like, what's happened to this guy? Like, speaking in emojis and stuff like that. And I just don't, at the end of the day, everybody wants to be successful, and they're going to have to do something different to what they were before to achieve it. Like, that's just what you got to do. And with me, it was a podcast and posting on LinkedIn. It's going to be something different for everyone else, but I don't think anyone's going to, well, at least from my experience, belittle you or make you feel bad about trying to do something.
Yeah, but it can feel like that might happen in one's mind just because, the mind likes to play tricks sometimes.
I don't think there's that's just how I did it. I was like, I just want to interview other people and sort of hide behind that for a while. Sometimes I think you do just have to firm that and accept it's going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Or just, you can use LinkedIn in so many different ways as well. Like, you don't have to be a content poster. Like, you could be someone who just comments on other people's stuff and connects with people. And all I say with LinkedIn and why it is advantageous posting, obviously you get the impressions and you can grow an audience or whatever, but really all it is it's your portfolio, right? Your LinkedIn is the additional stuff that you don't write in your CV, like who you actually are, what your interests are, so that when you reach out to someone, you don't look like you're making up that you're actually interested in what they do or what they're saying. So that's what's been really helpful for me. It's like, if I say I'm really interested in helping students and I've never written a post about it or commented anything, they'll be like, oh yeah, all right, mate, cool. But now if I say it, they're like, yeah, well, he's done however many posts, this many podcasts, like I'll take him seriously to see what he has to say.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to look at it. You speak to a lot of students. Speaking of LinkedIn, how do you feel like, what do you think is happening? Because one thing I've noticed as I'm getting older, I'm not that old, but I feel old, but I'm not that old. But one thing I've noticed is that I have to start putting in effort now to keep in touch with what the younger generations are doing. So I didn't used to have to, and that's what I mean by I feel old. I actually feel great, but that's what I mean by I feel old. In that previously it's just like, I was on level with whatever young people are doing. I'm kind of, I'm there and I'm doing pretty much using the same platforms, doing the same things and so on. But I'm finding that now that I've hit 30, I feel like I have to start putting in effort to keep in touch with whatever Gen you want to call it.
Well, you say that I already feel like especially with 16-year-olds building like millions of followers on YouTube and whatever, I already feel outdated to things as well. And I'm just like, these people exist.
Yeah.
Just give them the responsibility to do it for you. Delegate. Because you're never going to be able to achieve what you want on your own anyway. So if younger generations can do it better, just accept that, stick to what you're good at. I mean, for what our generation are getting better at in some ways, like coding and social media and whatever, I worry about a lot of industries that actually need real, genuine people running them. Like, things as simple as airport traffic control. Who's going to want to go into a career like that? How do you even find out about it? It's one of the most essential things. It sounds random and everything, but it is something I think about. How are people getting educated on how you get into a career in air traffic control? No idea.
That's a very good point. Yeah, it doesn't create a lot of buzz, does it? There's not a lot of clicks around that.
They must have to just recruit in some way. Maybe I
Funny
should find
enough,
out.
Funny enough, my dad was an air traffic controller, so maybe I'll put you in touch. You can ask him.
Well, that's so random.
He did it for quite. Yeah, it is so random. He did it for like 4 years, I think, or something like that, when he was younger. But yeah, maybe I'll ask him. I'll see how he got into it. I think back then it was very different though. So yeah. But yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, how are people going to find out about these careers, and also who's going to want to do them? I feel like people are just not going to want to do a lot of these jobs anymore. I feel like it's going to be it's going to be a tough sell.
I mean, yeah, I can only speak for myself, but I've definitely been running away from a lot of career paths just because I still want to enjoy my life, and I know a lot of them, like, they're better people than I am in some ways, like nurses and whatever. They're doing 7 years of education to not much reward, and I'm like, there's got to be a bigger driving force than just money and everything that comes into that. And with me, like, I say that to caveat that I do want to achieve massive things and help a lot of people, and I think I'm just doing it in my own way because I'd be wasted trying to do it that way. So hopefully, everybody is just different. There are some people that really want to do these career paths from when they were young. I just haven't been meeting them. So anyone.
But that just could be a product of the people you tend to engage with and keep around you. So that doesn't necessarily mean they're not there.
Yeah, true. Yeah, no, yeah. Let's stay optimistic.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Let's stay optimistic, and hopefully we're all different enough, and we will continue to complement one another in some way. The reason I asked this is because of LinkedIn. I was just curious, like, from your conversations with people, obviously you're a lot more you're a lot closer to the student world than I am, to the student body than I am. How is LinkedIn at the moment for young people? I feel, are people still using it? Is it going to continue being relevant for younger people, do you think?
Yeah, it's, from my experience, it's as big as it ever has been. And from the conversation I've been having, like, it's slowly becoming as powerful a, media, just growing a following for like short form content and everything as other platforms like Instagram and TikTok. And you got to remember, there's a few things I always say when I talk to students about LinkedIn and why they should do it, because I was that student as well who joined the platform with nothing on no experience, just my university, and just thought it was successful people congratulating other successful people. I was like, where's my place here? But then there's three main things I'd say is you can walk around any room in your house right now, any street in London, and every single company or brand that is there, you can go on LinkedIn, find out every single employee at that company and message them. Like, that's crazy.
It's so powerful.
That's just the craziest thing to me. And that's how I got anyone. I mean, this podcast just simply would not have been possible without LinkedIn. It just flat out, I don't know how anyone would have done it. I don't know how people have done it in the past, because there are examples of it. And also
Yellow Pages.
God, yeah. The other thing with LinkedIn is it's so, I mean, I think, to be fair, I'm getting quite a bit of reward for doing this because it's not really a thing that many people do. But I've hired every single student, like every single team member, just through LinkedIn, like just posting, I'm looking for this person to join me, whatever. Like, if you're following good people that you're interested in, there's a good chance at some point one of them every week is going to post some opportunity that you could sign yourself up for. And they're not normally the most like, they're not like you have to do case studies and second round interviews and meet the founders and whatever. Like, it's just a very simple, like, we're looking to do this, we need this many people, or this society's running this. Like, it's an amazing place to find out what you want to do. And the same way that I've never used TikTok, and a big reason for that, aside from like the sort of addiction side of it and whatever, is I go on there, and because I've not put any effort into making my For You page relevant to me, I'm just like, what is this? This is not geared towards me at all. But you make your feed what you want it to be, and it becomes an interesting world. Otherwise, it really is just, I'm starting a new position at this. It's like, oh, cool. Like,
right. Yeah. That's a really powerful point, though, is that to understand that there are algorithms behind all these things and to make them work for you rather than just letting them feed you whatever. You can really fine tune them effectively to make them give you what you want.
I love YouTube. My YouTube feed's amazing at the moment.
I mean,
like, it's just people traveling, eating food. Like, I just go in it, I'm like, what do I want to watch now? And people can do that with any platform, but for me, I like YouTube style of content. So yeah, got to learn algorithms, I guess, nowadays. That's a big thing, whether it's actually you as a content creator or you as a consumer. Absolutely.
How much short form versus long form content would you say you consume?
I don't know. I've not even thought about that really. I'd say I'm probably on the longer form content side of things. Just because, I don't use TikTok, I don't use Instagram Reels because I really don't feel like maybe it'll get my attention and bring me to a longer form piece of content, but I don't get any like satisfaction or learning from it really. Like, I need to be like, that's why this is podcast, it's that immersive feeling. And with my YouTube feed, for example, I love traveling, I love history, I love new things that are alien to your just like day-to-day structure and lifestyle, and they can provide that, immerse you in something for 15 minutes and then just straight back at the what a nice break to have, just watching someone travel around this amazing place that you've always wanted to go. And then maybe you can work harder in that next bit because you need a way to afford it so you can go there. Like, just things like that you don't get for short form content.
That's really cool. Yeah, I definitely get sometimes stuck into a little wormhole with sort of survival stuff. I don't know if there's this guy on I think it's called the Outdoor Boys or something. And it's this guy on YouTube. He's just an absolute nut job. He'll go and just survive in Alaska. In
Yeah, I love this.
you've seen the guy, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, incredible. And then he takes his little son, or his little kids with him as well. Sometimes I think he's got a little daughter as well. And I'm just thinking, God, poor children, but not really because he knows what he's doing. Yeah,
We think about it in this whole like, do you consume short form, long form content, whatever? When you are consuming those YouTube videos, and you're seeing those people making a career from living in rural or whatever,
Yeah.
like it person's perspective, there's literally no one way of doing anything. You can't, it's not easy, and I'm never going to sit here and be like, why are you not just doing this? Like, because it's not like that. And I didn't go through those emotions for nothing. Like, as in, this has not been an easy process, an easy journey, and yes, comparatively to a lot of people, I've been more well supported through it. But it's I see it as a duty of mine now to help people realize that you really can, with the right support and the right people around you, do whatever you want, and it'll be better for this world if we all do that.
that's incredible. That's beautiful, man. I think, yeah, I have very similar thoughts around that. I think that we don't need to do huge things individually, but if we all try to do something, then some of us will do huge things, some of us won't, and that's okay. And all of us collectively will kind of help. So
Surely knowing what you want to do in life has to be one of the biggest problems this world's got solved, because it's front and center of like economic issues, mental health issues. Like, if everybody was passionate about what they want to do, obviously you can never achieve that perfectly. But if everyone was chasing that little bit harder and realized that a little bit more, how they could do that, how many problems would it solve? There's no end to seeing how that could create solutions that don't exist right now in every industry.
that's so true. That's so true, man. More people would access flow states and everything. I think it'd be a lot better. And actually, I'm really happy that the kind of conversation naturally went to talk about this, because I wanted to ask you. Obviously, this podcast is called Good for Profit, and we speak with people that are building businesses. We usually speak with people that are building businesses or are investors in the world of impact, tech for good, and so on. And you're someone who's done a lot of good in the world, in my opinion, at least, because you've offered a lot of support and guidance around careers, which is such a big thing for people, and it's just like the thing that we do for most of our lives. And you've done, I mean, your podcast, the career, the Graduate Guide, is not it's not a social enterprise or a charity, is it?
No, it's, to us, it's not. It's hard to know what it is,
because it's a podcast and it's tough to put it into.
Yeah, but it's also got loads of different strings to it now. Like, and so many different things I want to be announcing. Where I almost think it sounds arrogant to say it, but it is kind of like a movement at this point. It's just standing for how can we make careers a cooler thing? Like, how can we get people talking about their jobs in a smoking area instead of the football, like, for a change or whatever? Like, just literally as simple as that. And there's no one way of doing that. But I just think people don't really care about their career at a young age as much as they could and should.
Brilliant. Well, let's call it a movement then. And if that's what you're going for, my friend, you've got our full support with that. I would classify this as a good for profit in a way, because I don't know if it would fall. And this is actually the reason why, by the way, I'm going for good for profit. Sorry to talk about this now. I want to talk more about you, but just very quickly, the reason why we sort of came up with this term is because it's so difficult to place things under one umbrella. Like, is it tech for good? Is it social enterprise? Is it whatever? Is it climate tech? Like, but all these things are effectively, they have one thing in common. They're trying to do good in the world, but in a way that also sustains a business, right? Also, or make money in some way, and not just be a sort of a charity. Nothing wrong with charities, but in my opinion, they're better served somewhere else. They better serve other things. Sorry. So how would you personally define a good for profit? How would you define the good that you're doing? as a movement with the graduate guide?
Uh, uh, um, yeah, it's hard to pinpoint one thing. I just think, like, for me, I want to be the facilitator of opportunities that maybe didn't exist before, for young people. Really, that, I'd like to build something that I wish when at university, I could go, I wish I had that. I still have that feeling where, even though I know I am giving value, whatever, would I in first year been like, oh, this graduate guide thing, like, I need to be, I need to know about this. I need to be part of it. I need to join this community. Am I there yet? I don't really feel like it. I know I'm on a good path to it, but that's where all the, I've got so many, like, I can't even express how excited I am for this year with the people I'm working with and collaborating with. And, there's sort of no limits to where this could go, which is the most exciting thing.
Brilliant.
At one point I had to make the decision, is this going to be something I did at university that was pretty cool and I could put on my CV, or is this going to be something that I build on and really make and forge my career from? Just an idea. The origins of the graduate guide is hilarious. I think it's quite important for context, where
Sure.
I was just in the pub and I saw my old head boy from when I was like in year 8, so like, maybe 4 or 5 years above me, and I always thought, oh, he's the guy, like, he's good looking, he's got a good, he's smart, he's got a good job. And then I found out, like, he was in this really cool startup thing, and I was like quite under the influence, let's say, and I just said, do you want to come on my careers podcast? It didn't even exist. Like, there was no name, there was no logo, no nothing. I just wanted to start surrounding myself with people like him more often. And that's where this all started from. I also designed this logo here.
Wow.
For those listening, this is the original logo. And I went to a talk with the managing director of Google a couple of weeks later, invited him on it. That there wasn't any episodes out, and he was like, sure, sounds great. And from there I was like, wow, this is actually more achievable than I thought. It was still, awful LinkedIn posts, and I was in, like, they were just like, listen to this episode, like, no like pull factor at all. But for me at the time, just being able to speak to these people, I was just amazed by it. And I think it's such a good opportunity I can give back to students as well. Like, it's so easy to do, and that's what's happening right now.
You should also give yourself some credit. You're pretty good at talking to people, because so give yourself some credit there as well, and to give yourself credit for taking that bold move and being like, hey, do you want to come on a podcast that doesn't exist? I think that's absolutely brilliant. That's like startup 101. It's like, hey, do you want to buy this thing? Well, what is it? Well, it's pretty cool. Look at it. It doesn't exist yet, but it's pretty cool when it will be there. I love that. That's absolutely incredible.
Well, luckily the mission statement of the graduate guide has always been such a reputable one, in that it's just wanted to help people find out what they want to do in their career, that I never felt like any shame, or like, I was always so confident in why I was doing it. Like, there was never any question about my why or whatever. Just very natural. Why would anyone want to come on this? Well, were you a student once? Probably yes. Do you know what you want to do always? Probably not. Okay, do you want to help give back to other people that were like you? And that's really why anyone came on in the early days.
Amazing. Yeah. And people just want to give back in your experience, because if people have figured out a career they love?
I don't think it really matters, because I don't think I'll ever truthfully know why the people came on the podcast in the early days. But it could be, it's quite a nice thing for your ego, just getting a message like, I love your work, can you come on my podcast? Some people just always talk at student things, and they go into the university, or like, whenever I get a message, I need to somehow work out how I'm going to do this, but I do get messages now to come on podcasts or have calls with people and for so long I was in this say yes to everything. I'm having to learn how to say no to some things, because otherwise I'll just be spending my life just sitting on podcasts and whatever, which, not a bad way to live, right?
Sure.
I need to actually get some other stuff done as well.
There is other stuff you have to do, absolutely. That sounds like an interesting part of the journey for you, to kind of figure out how to say no in a way that Well, what is it about it that for you feels a bit kind of iffy? Is it that do you feel bad? Do you feel like maybe there's something great there? Maybe I should go.
It's literally nothing about that for me. It's I made my career of people saying yes to me,
Okay.
and I want to be able to give that back to as many people as possible. But I just, you know, I guess I'm not like I don't beat myself up by it, but I do always think like, oh, like I know you just were like me, but I think you kind of I always try and reply to someone and give back some feedback on how they can reach out to the next person better or come up with a more compelling idea. Like, but yeah, it's just, I guess it's a natural thing.
Yeah, it's empathy, which is great. So we're running a little bit tight on time, and I wanna chat to you for longer, but we're running tight on time. So share with us some of your excitement about the next things you have coming up. You've said multiple times that you've got so many things coming up you're excited about. I know one of the projects, and I think it's such a great idea, and you did post about it recently as well. Can you share with us some of the exciting things you have coming up for you, man?
Okay, I'll try and do it in the most efficient way possible.
Yeah.
And think about,
sorry.
yeah. Obviously, the job is a big one.
Yeah, of course.
Easy A is genuinely like one of the fastest growing companies in the world, with the most intelligent people I've met ever. Like, you know, for anything I've done, like there were no founders that I wanted to work with more than Easy A. I met them I just helped them put on an event because they'd seen some of my content. And then naturally we had some lunches, like 3 or 4 times, and next thing you know, we're working together, and they've empowered me and given me so much opportunity to just implement all the ideas I had anyway on like a supersized scale. So like, you know, I was doing events with the Graduate Guide before. I've done 3 or 4 of them already. I'm now going to be doing them all the time with bigger budget, you know, more people involved, like different purposes and different intentions. So loads of events, charity football match with Zero Gravity, which will be announced soon as well.
Exciting.
Which, you know,
and you love football and you love the sports podcast and everything. This is just perfect for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a dream of mine to be able to do it, and I've got the sort of go ahead with it now.
Wow.
And that'll be in June. And be announcing. I don't know when this has been released, but it doesn't really matter anyway. But
we'll figure it out.
The graduate giveaway is literally just every week I'll be giving away a different product, service, or opportunity to students.
Amazing.
And
that's very nice. That's very kind of you. It makes me want to become a student again, so I can sign up for that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not specific, you know. It's more just, I think they're the people that need the help most. And I've got the sort of means and the people around me to offer that. And then the final thing of note, I guess, is I'm selling, I've been building a career course called the Divergence Program with a good friend of mine, Steve Duke, who's, you know, a very amazing guy in his own right, and we'll be selling that in February, but also giving away a lot of free ones as well. So look out for that.
Very exciting.
Basically a one-stop shop on how to find a career you're passionate about.
Wow, love that. I like the name, the Divergence Program. Why that name?
To be fair, that's actually from his podcast. Okay. He's got a podcast called the Two Roads Podcast. Steve, he worked for McKinsey, built an exit 2 startups, and basically took a year out to find what he wanted to do from a different perspective to when I did it. And we've just come together being like, let's pull together everything we want. And it's that idea that, you know, along your career path, you can diverge to different paths, so it doesn't really matter which way you go. But like, the aim is to end up at when you're most passionate and happy.
Wow. That's it.
That was great. Really enjoyed it.
No, I'm only joking. I was saying that's it sarcastically about the things you've got coming up, because you sound like you have quite a lot coming up. So,
oh yeah, they're all very early days. But one thing I've never been afraid of is to, you know, just announce things early, get people engaged, and, you know, work out the rest after, because, you know, they are going to happen. how big they're going to be and to what extent is, kind of out of my control. I'm just going to work with the people and work as hard as I can myself to make them the best projects possible.
That's very cool, man. That's very, very cool. I guess as a quick closing thing at the end then, you've given a bunch of advice to young people, you've given a bunch of advice to students, and you've talked a lot about careers and kind of how to go about doing all that stuff. Can you just give one piece of advice on how to juggle a lot of things at the same time?
Okay. Once you've slept, let's say you sleep 8 hours, once you've had a shower, eaten some food, done everything that you need to do to survive and live in this world, you've probably got about, let's say, 14 hours conservatively to do whatever you want with it. How are you spending those 14 hours right now? How are you utilizing those 14 hours? Like, that's 14 hours is a long time each day. And to be honest, there are some, I still feel this. Some days, some hours of those days, you just want to get through them with as least trouble as possible. And not, you don't need to achieve anything. You just want to enjoy yourself, relax and whatever. But even if you take them out, you still got 10 hours to do something. I don't live by this wholeheartedly as well as I could. But it is just a cool way to think in terms of trying to juggle a lot of things. How many hours in a day should you allocate to this? Maybe 1 hour into building relationships, an hour into writing stuff down, an hour. Don't think about it as laterally as I've got to get this done, this done, and get overwhelmed by it. Just think about how do you want to spend those 14 hours in a day to achieve what you want to achieve.
Very cool, man. Wow. 100 hours a week is indeed a long time. And so if you can put that to great use every week, then of course you're going to have enough time to do everything that you want to do. So yeah, thank you so much for coming on, Peter. Appreciate you being here, my friend. Appreciate, again, that you have a lot on. So appreciate you making the time for this.
That's all right. Yeah. Always something out.
Thank you, man. I'm sure everybody's going to love listening to this episode. Everyone's already loved it, of course, because this has been already released when they listen to this. But yeah, my friend, onwards and upwards. Excited for your next part of the journey, and hopefully we'll have you back on at some point and sometime in the future when you've achieved so many more amazing things, and then we'll talk about the journey from here up to then as well.
Thanks, bye.
Thank you, mate. Cheers. That was Good for Profit with your host, Mo. Thank you very much for listening. To support us, please like, share, subscribe, and send it to whoever you think will benefit from this episode or will be interested in listening to it. We are, of course, in the early days and we're trying to grow the podcast. And so every share and every like and every comment does go a very long way for us. So thank you very much for listening. And if you have any feedback, please let us know if you'd like certain topics covered, or if you have entrepreneurs or investors or ecosystem leaders that you'd like to see on the podcast, feel free to get in touch with us. The link will be in the description below this episode, where you can leave feedback and also get in touch with us to let us know if there's somebody you'd like to see on the pod. Even if you have no direct connection with them, just let us know and our team will get on it to try and get them on here. Thank you very much for listening once again, and hope to see you in the next one.